Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Hello and welcome to Strategic Frontlines, a YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies. Today we thought of having a discussion with Dr. Tara Kartha, a well-known expert on international relations, security matters, and a very, very common face on the national media. And she specializes in studying the various international players who are currently on the scene at the global level. So, keeping our thread of discussion along those lines, today we thought let us try to demystify, uncover, decode, I don't know what all words we can use for various moves which Trump has made in the last few days, which has been underscored also by the ongoing Iran-Israel conflict, which has been taking place for the last 8-9 days now, and it seems to be turning out into another long-drawn affair, like the other ones which have been taking place, like Russia-Ukraine. Then you had the Israel-Hamas, and now it seems like it will be the Israel-Iran war. So we will try to focus today on Pakistan as to what is the Trump administration, or I would say Trump only, because ultimately he's driving the entire moves here, up to with Pakistan vis-a-vis India and vis-a-vis the Israel Iran conflict. So, without taking any more time, very warm welcome to you, Dr. Kartha, to this show.
Thank you.
So, unlike the comments which you make, short ones, this is going to be a long one. So we expect a little more nuanced approach from you, and which we know we are going to give it to us. So, two, three things have happened. So we will go one by one. First one, and first one is that Trump decided to cut short his visit to G7. And the social media has its own way of interpreting things. He ran away, or he didn't want to meet Modi, so on and so forth. There are so many comments coming, even from big names, even those people who are considered to be very, very media, I would say, balanced in their approach, have also been talking on these lines. What is your view? Why did he leave the G7 summit short of the completion? Was it purely due to Iran-Israel conflict, or was there any other reason also? Over to you.
I think a lot of it was also in Trump's personality is to win. He has to be seen to be winning all the time in the stage. I mean, that's how he works. He got his way in terms of the G7 in a common statement. It was not a joint statement, but it was a sort of statement they made at the end of it. I mean, they managed to reduce the stress on Israel, but that's about all he got. I think with the Canada, his meeting was quite tumultuous. The very few leaders whom he has not managed to annoy in Europe. I mean, he's threatened tariffs. So in that kind of sphere is not Trump's. It doesn't suit his personality to be in a room where people don't like what he's doing. Plus the fact that within Europe itself, if you look at the the GDP weight of G7, the US is doing very well because it's doing very well out of war. Europe is not. It has lost its GDP in terms of relative to Trump. I mean, relative to the US, European GDP has come down. Its defense spending has gone up. So Europe is getting a raw deal. Overall, also the G7 is now about 45-50% of global GDP, where once it was more than 60%. So, European leaders blame Trump for their troubles, and that's not exactly surprising that they should, because now they're looking at two wars, and these are not countries who want to, who are not, they are more into trade, into economic strength. The European Union was here in New Delhi, they were talking about, the whole thing is about their what shall I say, the weight in deciding trade relations between countries, not their war, their armed might. So there is a definite divide within the G7 because of, specifically because of Trump's policies. And I think that's also, of course, the fact that he went away, went back, and he wanted to meet Asim Munir. And he called, he thought he could get our prime minister there. He could not, which is because he.
I'll talk about that a little later, and that is the show clincher, and we will keep it to the end. So we will kill out this GDP, sorry, the G7 meet here by asking you another question. So, in your view, it is essentially the economic raw deal is the first factor, which
Mm.
the Europeans are not very happy with it, and the second factor is that Trump did not get much out of the G7 summit except for the fact that Israel was not talked about in that way, in an adverse way. I mean, these are the two things which came out. But my more important question is: do you see a divide now taking place because of Trump's move of is it splitting the Europe, or is it just a development which has taken place by virtue of Trump's over enthusiasm in trying to make everybody be part of the expenditure deal, economic expenditure deal as far as NATO is concerned? So, are you going to see some divide with the UK still falling in line with US and countries like France and all? Because France has been quite vocal in opposing a lot of steps which the President Trump has been taking. So, do you see some kind of a split, or there'll be some adjustments and they'll get together?
No, that split I think has pretty much always been there. They called UK the Europe, the American largest aircraft carrier outside of the US is the UK. So UK has present announced. Sorry,
So,
did
no, I was reminded of our statement when we say Andaman is our fixed aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean. So you are now equating England as the aircraft carrier of the United States in the Atlantic, I suppose.
Yeah, they've always played a role in preventing European unity. And this goes back decades. When they talk, we should have European defense, or the UK when prevented that, then they pulled out of European Union. So even now, UK has announced increased, aid for Ukraine and things, whereas France and Germany don't want to go down that road. Both France, Germany, and the rest of Europe are seeing a rise in the far right also. I mean, that is what amazingly you had the US, vice president and others addressing these communities within Europe and saying their views should also be taken on board. So that is directly affecting the political future of these leaders. Number two is inflation. I mean, the overall across Europe, they're talking of a 19% increase in defense expenditures. It's worse than the Cold War era. So this
Matching
is
the
not. Sorry.
matching the Pakistanis in terms of the rate of increase of expenditure.
Yes, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, come to think of it, yes, that kind of stuff is
20,
going on.
20% by Pakistan, and here you're talking about 18 and 19%. It's almost matching in terms of
Yes,
seriousness of the future which is likely in store. I mean, I'm looking at it from a
yes,
more
yeah.
serious point of view, not purely from equation with Pakistan. But is there now a danger of Europe getting more militarized and more insecure because of NATO pulling back, or US pulling back from the European theater? And by
I
pulling back, that means restricting itself in terms of involvement.
I don't think the US is going to restrict itself in that way militarily. They will remain where they are. It's just that in that I would actually support Trump in saying that NATO and had no business in expanding to Russian borders. He said that. He said this war should never have happened. So in that
Absolutely.
aspect, he's absolutely right. So a lot of things Trump does. might annoy a lot of people, but usually there is a very strong grain of truth in it. Not in everything, but in some things. So also
Okay.
the overall global military expenditure has gone up, which means, especially in Pakistan as well, if you look at the budget, allotments for health has gone down, allotments for energy renewables has gone down. So this time, when the European Union came to India, what they were looking at was precisely these areas, cooperation from India on these areas which are being ignored. For the US, environmental problems don't exist according to the US administration, but they are looking at those, yeah, green energy, everything with us. So I think that's what another aspect where we have a lot of common ground now with Europe on a lot of issues, which
Okay.
we also want the Ukraine want to end. Europe, and I'm saying not the UK, the rest of Europe. So
Yeah.
in terms of representing the concerns of the global South, where the Europe is heavily invested, this is not about morality. It's about
Yeah.
investments in these countries and stabilizing them. So I think that's where it was headed.
So, how much do you think from the G7, India factor was responsible, or Iran-Israel war was responsible for Trump to cut his visit short? Was there any kind of truth in this narrative which has been playing around within the country, or it is just that people have sought this as an opportunity to get back at the US?
I don't see any India role in Trump leaving
I'm
at
not.
all.
I'm not talking. I'm not talking of the role. I'm talking of, was India also one of the factors that possibly he went out of the G7 early, or it is just a
No, I
narrative?
don't think there was anything to do with that. I mean, nobody but Trump knows why Trump does what he does. But there it is.
Yeah,
But
I mean that. So that is something which I think has become a very common understanding of Trump, that
yes,
nobody knows what he's going to do next. But
but he went
we.
back to the situation room. That is the main thing. When he went back, he went straight to the situation room, indicating that something was heating up. Number two, I think the fact is that if you see General Kurilla, who's the CENTCOM
Yeah.
commander, he's
Mm.
heading this whole Israel Iran war effort. It's in his hands. And
Yeah.
recently, I just saw a statement from someone. Even Peter Hegseth has stepped aside to which Peter Hegseth does not. That's not his line. He
Yeah.
always wanted less power for these guys and more power in terms of the elected people. So
Yeah.
this time, Hegseth has stepped back. Kurilla's very, very hard line on this issue.
Mm. Mhm.
So when we look at the fact that he went back to the situation room, they had a whole meeting. Then of course we had the meeting with Asim Munir, who was apparently kept waiting in a hotel room for several hours. We don't know if that's true or not, but eventually that's where it went. Which means Hegseth was there, and this Rubio, the Secretary of State Rubio, was there, and no civilian aids. It's very unusual. Such a
Mm.
meeting, and the very fact that Asim Munir was there at all was unusual, because I think this is the first time a sitting field marshal or general or whatever he calls himself has been had a one-on-one with the White House. That itself is unusual. But the fact that the meeting took place with nobody there. Then, of course, you earlier had Kurilla's own testimony where he said we have a phenomenal relationship with Pakistan and all the rest of it. The CENTCOM, as you are, as a would be more aware even than me, is very, very accustomed to dealing with Pakistan.
Yes,
So,
that's right. That's right. That's true.
so
That's true.
they have a working relationship which goes on regardless of whether which president is there, who's there. That goes on. The
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so he himself has said, he made 45 visits to the region, of course, not Pakistan, the General Kurilla. So he's a very hands-on general. And if he has to get something going in Iran, I mean, one more US aircraft carrier group has just joined. The Nimitz has just joined the Carl Vinson, I think, which was already there. So two carrier
No,
groups,
they were
Persian
they were
Gulf.
two already there. They were two already there, and Nimitz has, I think, joined them. So there'll be three, I think.
I think Nimitz has just arrived. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
does seem to
Nimitz,
signal.
Nimitz was on its way. Nimitz was on its way, and now I think it has joined the
That's right.
party.
Yeah. So now, if I can, if you'll permit me, alongside this is, if you're
Mhm.
looking at Pakistan, is that you had that whole visit of the Prime Minister and Asim Munir to the surrounding regions, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iran, and all. Iran, he didn't get a very great visit, but he managed to meet some people, and finally, later, he met the leader. Then he made a statement that we will stand with Iran no matter what. And then
Yeah.
in the UN also, they've made very, very strong statements of support for Iran. And General Munir, in interaction with expat Pakistanis at the hotel at the in Washington, also said that the we will stand with Iran and all that. He's made very strong statements on Iran. Now, in all this, then you start wondering what Iran and Pakistan are not really the best of friends. I mean, there's one is you talk a lot about how we should stand by XYZ, and then you wind up, funding terror groups which are operating into Iran. So this
Yeah.
is a
So
very, yeah, it's a very
so so
nuanced
so
relationship.
Yeah, so now I come to that, the most viral question, which possibly our social media has been talking about. There are so many articles which have come. So what is the politics behind inviting Munir for luncheon date? Was it a summoning, or was it an invitation, or was it giving the peace of mind of US on the Iran-Israel conflict which is going on, that Pakistan should lay off its hand from doing anything in support of Iran, or the other way around, that it should give as much contribution as possible? And I know contributions are not in terms of giving any kind of a physical support, but there are other ways and means to support a particular alignment and a formation. You are aware of it. You have been in that community for good over 17 18 years, and you know that how the suppression of AD etc. had taken place using certain elements in Iran by the Israelis. So there would have been need for sources of information, etc. So what was the politics behind this luncheon? Suddenly, all of a sudden, from the blue, it came that he's been invited for lunch. It started off, of course, with invitation for 250th Army Day parade, which was actually a fake news. But then subsequently, this luncheon came. So, what was behind it? I think that is something which you should like to. We would like to listen from you.
I think if I can just step back into history, because these things have
Mhm.
happened again and again and again in Pakistan US relations. If you remember 1959, Ayub Khan
Mhm.
drops in on, not drops in, sorry, he comes for breakfast, not lunch, to meet President Eisenhower, and they discuss India, how India is bullying them. They discuss Kashmir, why Kashmir rightfully belongs to them. They discuss the Indus Water Treaty, and then they talk about the communist threat. You can
Yes.
literally copy paste that statement and put it into the present context, into what they would have
Mhm.
discussed. And at
Mhm.
the just prior to that, Ayub Khan, who later became field marshal, as we know, 1 year after that he became field marshal, he
Mhm.
gave a U-2 base to the United States. So the lesson is that if you go get to have breakfast or lunch with the president, there's something that you're going to have to give back. He can't go back and to
Total
adulation.
luncheon.
Yeah, the from Pakistanis are already sort of all over the place talking about how great Munir is, and the fact. So there is obviously some trade-off going to happen here. The question is what it's going to cost Pakistan and what
Yes.
exactly do they want. I would
Correct.
s- if he has said he will secure a deal. That's what he says. He says the war is going to end. We want the war to end, and we're going to get Iran to agree to a deal. But it's not Iran who's attacking, it's Israel. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. If indeed, I mean, Trump, to be fair to him, is not terribly interested in a war because that doesn't really get him anything. He wants to end the war also. In
Yeah.
which case, yeah, we are talking of why does he need Pakistan? He's got all those aircraft carriers there. He
Yeah.
needs, if you need, as again, as you will know more than anyone else, If you need to induct in special forces, if you need to fly drones, if you need to find aerial platforms, you need a land base. And that is where Pakistan comes in. And the fact that the Baloch border has been used, the Balochistan Iran border has been used for years for espionage operations into Iran. And Iran knows it and Pakistan knows it. So, in this, he has played a very, very smart game. General Asim Munir, first, of course, he talked of the Nobel Prize because the president had averted the nuclear war, and we were forced thereafter to say that no such thing took place. So he's kind of already created a rift, sort of a rift between you all, and in you having to deny the fact. So that was one. But the thing is, he's not going to be able to give the president, which he knows. Trump is no fool. You can't even announce a nomination. The Nobel Prize committee is so secretive. They will not even put up a list of nominations. So there's no use.
Yeah.
So he got a free talk, and that's all. Next, what he did is that if the Pakistanis have been trying desperately to get US troops back on their soil in some form or the other, because we are talking of 48 billion in aid which they were getting, which was completely turned off in somewhere once the US troops left. And one statistic I have is that about 70% of that money, not aid, sorry, this was reimbursements for US defense using Pakistani territory, fuel, etc., which was all
Yeah.
about 70% of that was funneled out of it. And this is a statistic which has been put out by the most reliable people. So if 70% went away, and a part of that, which I recall when I was working on this in my earlier term, the State Bank of Pakistan stated that if it were not for US, what they call reimbursements, they would not have been able to pay back a loan to China.
Oh,
So that
is
is how,
so,
yeah.
so there seems to be some truth in the siphoning of these aids to either Western Front of India, Western Front of India, and the repayment of the Chinese. So that is why probably the Chinese are also quiet about US likely presence in Pakistan.
I don't think they like it very much. But if you recall, even when the US was there with the Mujahideen, blah, blah, all the rest of it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going on, the Soviet Union at a couple of times hit Pakistani borders, air and land violations. They were also very angry with it. So, this, how the Chinese will react remains to be seen. If this ends Israel-Iran war, I don't think Beijing will be too displeased. Beijing also does not want Iran to go nuclear. That is the
Absolutely.
reality. So the problem is, if you stop this war, Iran will go nuclear. There's no two ways about it. And it has the ability, it has the knowledge. You cannot erase knowledge.
Mhm.
So this is the problem which Trump faces. Either he has to obliterate the entire arsenal, which is hundreds of feet, Fodro, which is hundreds of feet below the ground, which
Yeah.
requires some kind of manual intervention or bunker busting bombs by the thousands, or he gets Iran itself to back off. That is probably where Munir comes in. Like you said, perhaps we don't know in terms of targeting. I mean, somebody gave Israel a lot of help. Someone within Iran gave Israel a lot of help in targeting. One. Number two is, who knows, maybe Iran will listen. I mean, it sounds very, very, very unlikely to me. But perhaps Iran will listen to their Pakistani friends who just about 8 months back was bombing their territory.
Absolutely. I mean, they exchanged cross bombing inter boundary attack by both the sides. So that is something, and of course they were able to come to some kind of a solution to their adventures across each other's boundaries. But ultimately, there is there has never been a very friendly relation between Pakistan and Iran. And in Balochistan, the Sistanis are supported by the Pakistanis, and the Baluchis are supported by the Iranians. That dynamics plays out quite regularly, and you know what has happened to Pakistan because of this particular dynamic. So maybe there is a double game being played by Pakistan to also cut Iran to size, and as well as appear in the larger Islamic community as somebody who continues to give statements in favor of Iran, but on ground it does nothing really remarkable to support Iran. So this could be a double game, and Pakistan has been very adept at playing double game. It has been playing US China quite regularly. The Chinese also have no options because they would not like this war to continue, because 40% of their oil comes from Iran. Now,
Yes.
if Iran starts getting involved in a war which is going to be prolonged, Persian Gulf getting closed, then China will have to look for alternatives. Is it going to be a pipeline alternative via Russia, which will take some times to come? The agreement has still not fructified. Maybe China was trying to look ahead, and they were trying to have a linkage with Afghanistan, Pakistan. Then they could have linked with Iran, and then done some kind of offsetting of their requirements of oil and gas. But that is not anywhere near in the future. So China is also staring at a very difficult economic situation should this war continue. So maybe China may be betting on Pakistan to ensure that the war stops, based on its influence with the Saudi Arabian or the Islamic countries, with possibly Munir trying to give the bait to the Chinese that, look, I'm going to Trump, and we are going to have this kind of a parlance wherein we will try the war to uh, end shortly, or end in a time frame which is acceptable to everyone, and yet Iran doesn't go nuclear. So these are too many complex things, which are coming in the way, and I don't think it is so simple that anybody will believe what Munir is saying, because that was my next question. Do you think Munir is such a voice in the global community that just because he announces support to Trump for his brilliant action taken to stop the India-Pakistan confrontation, he deserves a Nobel Prize, etc., that Trump is so hungry to seek some kind of a support like this from Munir?
No, Trump is certainly looking for a victory. I mean, he's been thwarted in Ukraine. He's not thwarted in Israel, but it's not really working out as well as he hoped. And he
Mhm.
wants to project himself as a peacemaker. I mean, that's his thing that he does. But whether Munir can deliver on that is extremely doubtful, because this is
That's,
not.
that, that was my also point, that
Yes.
is Munir capable of doing something like this with Iran, and the way Iran is posturing as of today?
No, it's the absolute absurdity of a military dictator, field marshal, proposing a Nobel Peace Prize to a US president. That is the theater of the absurd. But leaving that
Yes.
aside, you know, he has, I mean, let's to be honest, they have played a very smart game. I mean, in doing all this, projecting themselves. But there is a limit to how much you can project a state which is broke. I mean, Pakistan has no money, it has no stature, it is struggling. How much can you project it? So,
Yeah. So
plus, yeah.
it is here that I now want to bring in a statement of our former chief of India, and he has somehow reduced this entire fiasco of the luncheon date to a very very simple understanding. I saw his tweet on the X, and he said that it is a rehabilitation effort made by Munir to reach out to US post his assignment of the chief of the army staff. So all the previous generals of Pakistan have sought their refuge in US, where they
Mm.
are given some kind of a peaceful place to live, drink, eat, whatever they want to do, and then go into oblivion. Pervez Musharraf and whole lot of other generals also do the same thing. Do you think this was also one of the aims of Munir to look, if something happens to me, uh, do welcome me with open arms and give me the kind of because you see the deputy PM has accepted a lot of things of deputy PM of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, today. He has come on Pakistan TV to say that we approached both Saudi Arabia. In fact, he said Saudi Arabia gave a call to say that should we tell Jaishankar that Pakistan is interested in stopping the war. So he said yes, please go and tell. So technically speaking, he's playing into the narrative which India has, not narrative, the statement which India has made, that it was Pakistan who was always trying to stop the war. And Ishaq Zara said this on national TV of Pakistan. I just heard the statement before this podcast, uh, implying that there is not everything right in Pakistan. Within the government, also a lot of people are talking in different voices. Maybe Munir is looking at rest and rehabilitation in the United States of America. So we went running to US and trying to make his base secure and sound. This is by Ved Malik, General Ved Malik. I mean, he gave that thing that he has visited there for securing his rest and rehabilitation post his appointment as Chief of Army Staff. Is it because I don't? I have always appreciated General Malik because he never gives any statement without due consideration of all the factors. He's been a very balanced and a very, very, I would say, erudite person as far as giving his views on national security matters.
No, I in this, I don't think Munir has any intention of going anywhere just yet. He hasn't. He first put his eyes. I mean, this man, you have to give him credit or whatever for being patient, revengeful. He's very revengeful. He waits it out for the right time to do the right thing. I mean, he got the ISI chief as NSA, then he puts up a file, he makes him field marshal. Now that he's field marshal, God knows how long
Mm-hmm.
he's going to continue. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
whether he can retain the chief of army staff for long. I mean, whoever now becomes the next chief is going to have
Mm-hmm.
the field marshal looking over his shoulder. That's not the happiest of things for the next army chief, whoever he is. So
Yeah.
within the actual PMO, I mean the Prime Minister's office, he's been made irrelevant. So the civilians would now be interested in sort of cutting a deal where this man's, posture goes down. I would assume so because their own political survival depends on that. But there
Mm-hmm.
is that. I mean, people are going to laugh at seeing, what is Shahbaz Sharif has been reduced to absolutely nothing, and Nawaz
Zilch.
Sharif. Yeah, so
He's,
Nawaz Sharif is not going to stand for this. I mean, they are not people who are so easily walked all over. But the thing is, finally, the question
mm-hmm.
is, if if Munir can get US troops on the ground and this whole thing starts, then he's sitting pretty. If nothing
Okay.
happens, that is where the hinge lies. And then he can cock a snook at India also. Once
Yeah.
US troops are on the ground, he will not bother about you. And perhaps
So what?
worse.
So, absolutely. So what I feel, and I mean, it may be, I mean, based on the discussion which we have had, is that there were three aims of Munir to go there. First was, of course, that he wanted the US somehow to get into Pakistan so that his Baluch problem, etc., is to some extent taken care of, because once they make the bases here, then obviously the Americans would be interested in ensuring that they give all the help to Pakistan to stem the rot which was taking place in the KKP and Baluch areas. The second thing which he's probably looking at is that the mullah will continue to flow as far as aid is concerned, which you said that when when US was using this Baluch border, they were giving something to the tune of 48 billion, I think you said. So,
That's
and they were
correct.
able to siphon off about 70 odd percent of this in repaying loans, and also I dare say even in also procuring weapons and defense equipment. So therefore, that
Yeah.
could be another. That could be another factor. The third factor is he's keeping his options wider now and not being dependent too much on China, because like India is diversifying, they're also probably like wanting to diversify to ensure that 80 to 89%, some people say 81%, some people say 90%. The exact figures are not known. It is a wild guess, I suppose. Dependency on China is also not very good for Pakistan, because if they start
Yes,
failing in terms of defense and equipment of China, then they'll be left high and dry. And at that
absolutely.
point in time, to train their manpower, what happened to Ukraine? This was the problem. They got the Western equipment. They were lying for quite some time before the Ukrainian forces could be trained on them and they could be deployed against the Russians. So possibly he's making a smart move. Like as you said, he's a very astute person. So he is also looking at diversifying his options for any India Pakistan future conflict which might take place. And people are predicting that it is just around the corner, maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months. We don't know the exact time frame. And India is, as of today, if all those stealth fighters which are coming in the news of J-35s coming to Pakistan, etc., we are way behind. If you look at in terms of the fifth generation aircrafts and even missiles. Like for example, a country like Iran is firing away hypersonic missiles. We are still some distance away from developing a hypersonic missile. So
Absolutely.
technically speaking, I think Pakistan is trying to make the Munir has taken a step uh, forward in ensuring that he got the greater preparedness for a future conflict which may take place between India and Pakistan, and not Iran. I don't think Iran is his real worry. So his real worry is probably India. The third thing which I feel what he has aimed at is that within the country, and I have got tweets coming out, and they look like tweets coming from the army, Pak army, directly addressed to me, which are saying that the nation is behind Pakistan army and not behind any political party or behind any political personality. So therefore, coming out with this move of going to US and then seeking a kind of a one-on-one with Trump, never seen the past for a chief of a particular nation to have such an interaction. He has cut to size entire opposition within the country, whether it is
Yes.
Imran Khan, whether it is Sabaz Sharif, immaterial. Imran
Ab-
Khan issue has been brought to dead. Imran Khan his party tried to do some kind of a demonstration in the United States of America, but it didn't cut much ice. So probably he has killed three, four birds with one move. How do you say
abs-
to that? Do you think it's a right kind of a conclusion which we can draw now, based on what you just said?
I think every time, if you look again, we look back at history, every time the Pakistan has been at war, and it's been at war forever with Afghanistan, for
Mhm.
instance. During
Yeah.
those periods, even post, say, the 9/11 attack, every time that happened, it was the military which got stronger. It was not the civilians. So they would say there's a threat, there is operations, and the military would get steadily stronger. So I think
Mm.
that
Mm.
is another fallout would happen if indeed there are bases in I mean that this is going to be very difficult for Munir to justify, to have US
Yes.
bases in Pakistan
Yeah.
openly. I mean,
Correct.
you may never get to know, that's a different issue, but like the
Yeah.
Peshawar base which was negotiated long back. But
Mhm.
once he gets that going, then the military's, like we said, funding gets better, which makes the military happy. Its defense budget is nicely backed up with money, and its own operations on the ground get far more effective. So the civilians, at as of now, like we said, the civilian government is nowhere to be seen. I mean, this is
Mhm.
amazing. You can't have a meeting with a US president without even the embassy personnel present. It's
Okay.
unbelievable.
So I'm coming to the last part of our discussion today, and that is the most difficult part, because even I am at loss as of today to what we should do, given the kind of moves which are happening around us, either by the United States of America or by Pakistan, as to how should India now go ahead, at least in the immediate neighborhood and with the great powers which are trying to somehow subdue India in their own ways. So, what should India do in this case? How should we try to outmaneuver our likely adversaries in the future? Chinese are keeping quiet about it, so the Indians also kind of sometimes resemble the Chinese in terms of wait and watch, look at what the others are doing, and then suddenly come up with a policy directive. So, your last thoughts on or the final thoughts on the India moves. What should India do? One thing we have done, that we have clearly told US that, look, do not mediate between India and Pakistan on issues, bilateral issues. Two, that we do not consider this bogey of proxy war anymore as a proxy. It's a war as far as we are concerned. That's also a big statement, corroborated by Foreign Secretary of India, also by Prime Minister saying so in very clear terms during the 30-minute talk which he had with the U.S. President. We also prevented the hyphenation effort of um, uh, you know Trump trying to uh, get Modi and Munir together while on his way out from G7 by Prime Minister Modi. I think that was a smart move which we did. We didn't fall to that bait of meeting the U.S. president and getting confronted with a military commander. See, he may be ruling Pakistan fine,
Mm,
but
mm.
at
It's
the
not.
optics level, this would have been a disaster as far as India was concerned. But more than this, what we need to do in terms of some concrete steps, both from the diplomatic front and from the military front. Military front, I can add on a few things, but I would like your views on the diplomatic front. How do we now pitch our international relations, both with Israel, Iran, being a problem for us? You see, our situation of taking positions on Israel, Iran is also very difficult given our own economic interest in Iran. While
Yes.
Chinese will get struck because of the 40% oil dependency, we are also, I mean, we have reduced our dependency on Iran
Almost
for
zero.
oil.
Mm.
Yeah, but ultimately we do have some friendship. We have our Chabar fort working there. We have uh, made some plans to connect to Afghanistan via Iran. All those will go into some kind of a limbo if this war continues. So India also is in a tight situation. So your views on that?
See, I'll just take this at several levels. One is in terms of this whole Kurilla saying phenomenal partner in counterterrorism, which that
Mhm.
is one. The other side of it is that the director of national intelligence in the US has
Mhm.
continues to say the Lashkar-e-Taiba is a threat, the Tehrik-e-Taliban is a threat. They continue to recognize the threat of terrorism from
Mhm.
Pakistan. So these are
Okay.
two separate. One is an operational man wanting Pakistan on his side. And incidentally, Kurilla also said this during his testimony way back in 2022. He was, sort of praised Pakistan and said, they are doing a lot. So when you have to work with a country to, you have to praise them a bit. Number two, he says you can have a friendship with India and Pakistan. Fine, that's dehyphenation. We are okay with it. You go ahead and do what you want with Pakistan. That's one level we can take it. Number
Yeah.
three, our interest, I think, is in empowering the civilian leadership.
Hmm.
Because as we soon, he even interestingly, when our CDS had said a statement which the media entirely misunderstood, when our
Hmm.
CDS General Chauhan said something very significant. He said the nuclear aspect never came into play at all. Right. So Trump's, all his claims are separately. The Pakistani side also said that the meeting of the nuclear command authority never took place. So,
Yeah.
there is a certain amount
I
of
believe I believe they said that it was planned, but it was been cancelled at the
yes,
last minute.
yeah, it was
That was the
cancelled. It was
that,
planned
yeah,
that
that was the
morning. And I think
hmm.
in the nights, all these wires were buzzing with the US and things, and all this was going on. They were talking to the US, and then they came and talked to us, and the war ended. But the nuclear thing never came into play.
Yeah.
So, if at all, I think it's time you gave the civilian leaders back some space. If you say we don't want mediation, that is fine. But you do, I think you should have some talks with Pakistanis, provided they take at least a minimal step towards ending terrorism. At least, get some of these guys. If the Islamabad is saying we are the worst sufferers of terrorism, how about getting some of those guys in jail? I mean, do something which will then allow us to say, okay, let's begin talking. And if you talk, then you're talking to the civilians. And any credit for a successful summit will go to the civilians. I think that's the way to go. In terms of Iran, and I think if you're saying that, you're a regional power, you're up there, you're among the G7, you're speaking for the global south. All of us who want an end to these both wars. I mean, nobody here, all of us are suffering. You have to weigh in on this. We cannot sit on this bylines. That means getting your hands dirty. You have to go send people to Iran and Israel. You already have a fantastic relationship with them. I mean, what I'm trying to say is you cannot, say that you're a power to reckon with without getting down into these ventures. So that
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if we are claiming ourselves to be up there, then we must be ready to face some music, some flake
yes.
of taking some steps on ground and not be neutral in our response, not be abstaining in our response. I think we need to go up there and start dirting our hand, as you said. I wouldn't say dirting our hand. I would say that start influencing your presence in these kind of confrontations which are taking place at the global level, with whatever kind of influence which you have, whether you have the influence with Israel, which is likely to turn their opinion in some form or the other, so do it, so be it. Similarly with Iran, if you convince the Iranians that, look, yeah, there's going to be harm only in case we continue with this kind of a thing, let's agree, let's withdraw to fight yet another day, yet another battle. Kautilya has always said that if you feel that you are weak, pipe down, wait for bid your time, hide your intentions, bide your time. So those kind of things can also be told, of course not upfront, but it has to be back channel which have to work on these things. So I think that's a good suggestion what we should do. But I kind of like the fact that and I would like, this is the final comment on this, that uh, let's, the third policy of Chanakya, which says bhed means create differences. Currently Munir is on the top in Pakistan. Now suppose you start talking to the civilian leadership of Pakistan and start giving them the bait that, look, we will agree to your certain demands on IWT provided you do this. If Munir tries to do anything, then you just withdraw. You say, fine, then let Munir sort out this problem on his
Correct.
own.
Yeah, yeah,
We
absolutely.
we we recognize Munir as persona non grata. Every time we have been giving the logic that, look, everything is being done by military, so let's talk to the military. I'm saying just do the other way around.
Mm.
Declare Munir as persona non grata, like
I
we do
think
to the
that's an
diplomats.
excellent idea.
And we just straight away say that, look, we are going to talk to the democratically. I mean, I mean,
Well, it's
how, however you want to call it, whether they came through democratic process or not, but at least they are a facade of democratically elected government. We will talk to the authorities and officials of the civilian government. We will agree for any kind of an arrangement which they have, and if it is broken, then we will also break all that. And if the army tries to intervene, that is the Pak army tries to intervene, the options are available. We have shown our options in the past, we will show our options in the present also. So if army, because army is not the authority to resolve any political disputes between two countries or international relations.
no,
So
but
your comments on this?
there's a problem here. While
Yeah.
100% I agree, this is a very good idea in terms of
Mhm.
declaring Munir as non PNG. But once I remember Nawaz Sharif saying that every time I start peace talks with India, there is a terrorist attack. So they will do this again. The moment you
Absolutely.
start
So this
talks,
time This time be prepared for it. When you know that history has taught you lessons, I think let's try something new. This is something of an original idea which is coming out. Let's see what
So,
happens. It may be worth putting it on paper and suggesting also.
and saying that we are going to talk to the civilians. If there is a terrorist attack, we will punish the Pakistan army. I mean, something like that,
Absolutely.
right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I no. First of all, make sure that the Pakistan army is not unable to do a Pahalgam. That's one. That should be the
Mhm.
first part. While we are doing this action of declaring him as persona non grata, but you can never be 100% sure with anybody who's on the offensive or who wants to attack you. Can slip in a moment and do something. Misadventure can take place. If that happens, then the second point which you said, that we will attack the Paka.
Yeah.
We are not
I,
attack. Like we have made the differentiation between terrorism and Pakistan. Now let's start making a difference between Pak
mm.
army and rest of the nation.
think that's a fantastic idea. I think
So,
that is the
so
way I think we should go forward, because Prime Minister said, he says we are not against the Pakistani people. Our Prime Minister
absolutely.
said that. So there we go.
So,
And
so, so maybe Dr. Tara, there is a work for you on this issue, and let's try to kind of play this around, toss this around, and maybe
there-
we will have something concrete coming out of this particular discussion. Thank you very very much, Dr. Tara. We will now go in for some questions, because otherwise we'll continue to keep discussing, and this discussion will never end. So there are some questions in the chat box, not some, many. We are always defensive in nature. Even Pakistan knows this. Now, this is something, Pavan, and you need to consider this thing, that we are not defensive in nature. We are more considered in our approach. We undertake firm actions, as has been seen from the last at least 6, 7 years, 8 years now down the line. That our actions have been very decisive. Even the current action has been quite impactful, and we have earned a name for ourselves. Don't go by the narratives which are taking place. Most of the narratives are all false narratives which are fake, based on fake information. Any word on this by you? Otherwise, we'll move to the next question.
we can take the. I think there's a difference from being, defensive and being firm. We were firm. We decided what we wanted and we did it.
Yeah.
Period.
So there is this a comment just for your information. Front end is democracy and database is Munir, which is called hybrid governance, which we have been also telling for quite some time. A comment, I think, ask in continuation. America left Afghanistan in a hurry. Now, what would be the logic for their running back in a little east of Afghanistan? Haven't they already learned this lesson? We can ask Trump on this issue. I think
No, I think
whether
actually
they want,
that's a question. I saw that question. That's true.
yeah,
I don't think they will go in with troops in that fashion. At the most,
boots will not go in. Boots will not go in.
they will use special forces, and that is where Pakistan comes in. Special forces attack, covert attacks, that kind of actions, that will be all from Pakistan. Boots, I doubt it very much, especially given Trump's dislike of it. But it's they've also learned lessons from Afghanistan, and it's not,
Absolutely.
so I
and
think that's
and it was and it was Trump administration which learned the lesson. So I don't think they're going to repeat it in Trump too. Again, this is the point which I was also trying to give, that they would like to diversify and not depend only on China, like the other nations are doing. So yes, they will do something which they have to do. Then there is a, let me see. I know where you guys did wrong and made Munir a female. It seems to be somebody. Yeah, Jack. There's a question from Jack in and out of the box. I'm being sarcastic, but I think Iran should propose to give a peace prize to Trump, provided he stops Israel from further attacking Iran. Your views?
that's also a very novel way of looking at it. But
Yeah,
actually, it's not a bad idea. Seriously,
it's
I
not a
mean,
bad idea. It's not a bad
not
idea.
at
It's
all.
it's not a bad idea. Anything for buying peace, I think would be good bet without losing much faith. Yeah, if look, if Pakistan can go and give a statement like this, that or prime failed marshal can give a statement like this, that Trump should be nominated for or for peace prize, then might as well Khamenei do it. What is the harm?
I think
After all, it is just say,
sorry, the
yeah,
the exit
yeah, go
here
ahead.
is for us to persuade Iran this whole thing of enrichment, which Russia has offered to take the fuel out of their reactors. So, and they will,
Mhm.
that was part of the deal. If we can,
Correct.
we can probably persuade them. That is one step away from war. But who will persuade Israel? That is the point. I mean,
Yes. So probably, in my opinion, it could be Russia, India combined for Iran, and US, India combined for Israel.
yes, it could. In fact, US, I don't think is all. I mean, though they said Russia has nobody to mediate when it's involved itself, but then I think Trump will be open even to that. The question of
See
how to end this.
why I'm saying so. I'm saying so based on a very very important requirement of the US. Look, uh, for whatever Trump is doing in terms of immigration, in terms of visa, what have you, Trump is a businessman at
Mm,
heart.
mm.
And today, if there is any concern in the United States which is looking for business, is the defense industry. The
Yes.
business which will come to the defense industry of the United States of America, and this I'm telling from my personal experience of an interaction with a think tank which is supposedly directly advising Trump, of only talking of defense industry, only talk, nothing else but defense industry. So if we can leverage that kind of a you know uh, influence which we will have with the US, I think this war could see some decent end, unlike the other wars which are taking place in Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Hamas, because those wars are, I would say, in terms of unequals. But here, between Iran and Israel, there are two factors which we must realize. Technologically, Silicon Valley is with Israel, fine, taken. But geographically, physically, a landmass and an old civilization like Iran, which can
Mm,
take on as many bombs as possible.
mm.
They might,
Abs-
Israel could not displace a 20-kilometer by 10-kilometer area of Hamas staying in the Gaza Strip. How can they take out, uproot a population base of the size of Iran with an old civilizational value system? So, my opinion is both have some strength in some department. So, this war, if it continues like this, it will not be a quick end war. And ultimately, sustenance of war by Israel is dependent on America. If the
yes.
don't support them with the financial aid and the military aid, let me tell you, Israel can't sustain this war for more than X
Absolutely.
number of it. So there are some realities in this conflict which can be played upon on both sides, and they come to some kind of an agreement that look, you'll be tockled by continuous technologically higher capability weapon systems than you have, and Israelis can be told that look, you will continue to be, I mean, subjected to whatever low grade actions which they are taking. Plus, don't rule out Iranians still have the capability of unleashing their proxies into Israel, and that will become a very
Yes.
bad thing.
Yes.
Hamas is not beaten, Houthis are not beaten, the Hezbollah is not beaten. They are just keeping quiet as of now. They can always be unleashed, and the pain of such an action is very well known to Americans in Afghanistan, because when they come inside, then it is something, then it is a different kettle of fish. It is no more technology. So I think we need to play on these fears of both the sides and look at things, there are many other questions also, but I feel uh, okay, there is last one we will take and then we'll call it a day. With Europe wanting to spend 5% of GDP on defense, meaning they would have to spend on ADS missiles, ADS means air defense systems, missiles, drones, anything else that come to your mind, your views. So,
I think
you
that's
know,
for you. Oh.
yeah, I know. So, what I'm trying to say is that look, Europe, for example, Germany, they were focusing on economics and defense, and they were not focusing on defense preparedness. Now they'll have to turn around their concept of manufacturing of defense equipment for their own use and requirement. That will take some time for them, especially for Germany. Germany, having visited Germany on a number of occasions, they had become very idealistic in their approach. So they were actually not upgrading their defense preparedness against a possible war. In fact, like one of the questions which I had asked to one of their officers, I said that, look, why don't you have a greater level of defense holdings, etc. They said, the border is too far away from our location. So we really don't feel the need for us to upgrade our defense preparedness. I mean, not upgrade, to equip ourselves to teeth. So they are focusing on, you know, selling their equipment, defense equipment. So upsurge of these capabilities will take some time for them. As far as systems are concerned, look, they will invest from space down to everything now. If there is a 5% spend increase of the GDP, they will invest in space technology, they will invest in cyber, they will invest in everything which is going to be deployed in future wars. Missile systems, hypersonics, the works. So the future is quite grim for Europe. It is likely to see what used to happen in Europe during the Second World War era. If these wars don't stop, that is Russia-Ukraine war doesn't stop, Israel-Hamas war doesn't stop, the Iran-Israel war continues, there'll be pressure on them. There'll be pressure on them to contribute to this overall effort. Maybe there may be realignment, and we are not even talking of Taiwan. We are not even talking of the Korean Peninsula. We are not even talking of the India-China border situation. There are so many conflicts which are going around. If they become live, I think we are looking at a very grim situation. Hope it doesn't come to that. Anything else if you'd like to add? I think I.
I'll just add one thing, one line. That is that every time that the economy suffers in Europe due to war, due to whatever reason, there is a
Mhm.
significant rise in right wing capabilities, which in turn
Yeah.
means your immigration will stop. So
Yeah.
that is going to impact you directly. So these are all interlinked problems. So I have a
Yes.
feeling you're going to be in trouble there as well. I'll
Yeah.
stop
So
there.
so then yeah. So there'll be a multiple issues related to international matters, which we need to be careful and quickly keep stocking ourselves so that we are able to sustain a longer conflict in the future as and when it comes up. With that, thank you very much, Dr. Kartha. We had a brilliant discussion today. I think we had a discussion absolutely free and free flowing environment without the hustle and bustle of a national TV trying to stop you in between with breaking news. The breaking news is that we have got some brilliant ideas which I think we will carry it forward, and let's see if it comes to fruition. Thank you and Jai Hind to you.
Jai, Jai, Jai Bharat.
Jai Bharat.